Hello, grade 9 students. Today we're going to go through a PowerPoint to get you ready for Take Our Kids to Work Day. This is part of Careers 9. I'm sure you're familiar with Careers 8 from last year. So what's going to be happening this year is Take Our Kids to Work Day takes place on Wednesday, November 3rd. It's part of the grade 9 curriculum and all of you are enrolled in that. What that means is Careers 9 is a non-enrolling class, meaning you don't actually sit in a classroom with a teacher. However, you are expected to complete several assignments throughout the year, with Take Our Kids to Work Day being one of them. All of these go towards your final mark on your report card for careers. So I'm sure you're all wondering, what is Take Our Kids to Work Day? So I'm sure you've all heard of it at some point. So it is an event where all grade 9 students in Canada spend the day at the workplace with a parent or a relative, a friend, or a volunteer host. If you are not able to find a workplace to go to, you just need to make sure that you ask. So this could be asking a family friend, a neighbor, a relative, even a friend's parent. The biggest thing here is that participation is mandatory. Take Our Kids to Work Day started back in 1994. So this year it is the 27th year that it has taken place in Canada. And it is the most recognized career education event in Canada. So what is the objective of Take Our Kids to Work Day? One of the main objectives is to enhance your understanding of what working life is like. The second objective is to help support you in the planning of your career path. This may help you discover something that you are really interested in, or perhaps you may discover that you are not interested in something. What is it, or what will you be doing? Take Our Kids to Work Day is a shadowing, meaning a hands-off activity. It is not work experience. Since this is not considered a school-arranged work placement, there will be no WCB coverage provided. So again, that is why it is just a shadowing activity where you will be following and learning what people do at their workplace. All right, so what do you need to do? First thing is participate. So participation is mandatory. If for some reason you are absent, you will be required to make up this event outside of the school hours. The second thing you need to do is make sure that you find a workplace to attend. So remember, all you need to do is just ask somebody. It can be a family member, a friend's parent, or a neighbor. All right, so now we're going to go through some Workplace BC slides just to get you ready for Take Our Kids to Work Day. Some of you may be wondering, what is Worksafe BC? So it is a provincial agency that is dedicated to promoting safe and healthy workplaces across BC. Some of the services that are offered through Worksafe BC are education, prevention, compensation, and support for injured workers. What are your roles, rights, and responsibilities as a worker? So we're going to talk about what your rights as a worker are. This is important to know. So the first one is you have the right to know about hazards in your workplace. You also have the right to participate in health and safety activities in the workplace, so you are more educated about it. And the third one, you have the right to refuse unsafe work. So if you think that something is unsafe, maybe you haven't been educated on how to deal with that situation and you don't feel comfortable, you have the right to refuse doing that. All right, so it's also important to make sure you understand and know your responsibilities as a worker. So you want to make sure when you're working at a job site that you are always alert to hazards. If you happen to notice a hazard, you want to make sure they are reported immediately to your supervisor. You also want to follow safe work procedures and make sure that you are acting safely at all times. It is important to make sure you're wearing PPE if necessary. That stands for personal protective equipment. So that could be an example being a hard hat or making sure you're wearing a mask if necessary. And right now, especially, you want to make sure that you are following COVID procedures. If you are injured on the workplace, you want to make sure you receive treatment immediately. And if you do receive treatment, that you are following the advice of healthcare providers. Once you are getting better, you don't want to return to work until you make sure that you are able to return safely after that injury. And lastly, we should all know this, but you never want to work under the influence of alcohol or drugs, or even if you are just extremely tired and you're not feeling very well that day. Okay, so now we're just going to touch base on refusing unsafe work. So if you have reasonable cause to believe that performing a job or a task puts you or somebody else at risk, what should you do? So the first thing is you want to make sure that you do not perform the task at that time. So let's just take a look at the picture we have on this slide. Obviously that looks extremely unsafe. You would want to not follow through with that job. The second point, you must immediately notify your supervisor. If after speaking with your supervisor, you now feel that it is safe to continue on, then you may proceed and complete the task. If you do not feel qualified or safe performing a task, that is when you want to make sure you contact Worksafe BC, and they will be able to give you advice and just give you some information moving forward. How can you prevent an accident? Do you see something that looks unsafe? What's wrong? Do you see or smell something unsafe? Are you trying to do something you have not been trained for? If this is the case, make sure you stop and call Worksafe BC. Do you think something is dangerous? Why is it dangerous? Do you need to take action? Who should you tell or ask? Make sure you do it. Contact Worksafe BC to prevent an injury. Always listen to your gut. Be a survivor. It is true that young workers get hurt more than anybody else. Looking at the graph in the blue, young male workers aged 15 to 24 are at a much higher risk to get injured at work, although those numbers are decreasing. Here are a few interesting facts. On average, 27 young workers are injured every day in BC. On average, 7 young workers are permanently disabled each week in BC. Young males face a 48% higher risk of injury than any other worker. Workers are at the greatest risk of being seriously injured during their first 6 months on the job. Around 20% of the injuries and fatalities to young workers occur during the first month on the job. Why are youth so at risk? They are unfamiliar with their rights and responsibilities. And remember, we just looked over these at the beginning of our PowerPoint. You are willing to take risks. You are keen to prove yourself. A lot of times you don't ask questions. You may be unaware of risks on the job. You have had little safety training yet. And lastly, lack of experience. In the next few slides, we're going to show you just a few pictures that have been taken by Worksafe BC in Surrey. So this picture is just showing you overloaded power outlets and some electrical hazards that definitely should have been reported to Worksafe BC. Take a minute and just look at the pictures on this slide. Would you do this? I hope your answer was no. For these pictures on this page, we can see that they're not wearing proper PPE, they're not following proper safety protocols, which definitely could result in an injury on the workplace. For the next slide that we're about to see, if you're squeamish or if the sight of blood makes you feel uneasy, please feel free to look away. We are going to see a few pictures of different accidents that happened on the workplace to young workers. If you are squeamish with the sight of blood, please look away now. We are about to look at several photos of workers who received injuries at their workplace. This is a picture from a young worker in Surrey back from 2003 who lost the tips of 3 of her fingers from not receiving adequate training for her job from her employer. So all in all, we want you to remember to be a survivor. Assess the situation. What are the risks? What could go wrong? Biggest thing, ask questions. If you are unsure of anything, make sure you ask Worksafe BC. Always wear your personal protective equipment and be safe.